The capital to Tennessee for safety's sake, not just dollars, but medals. And I think they will come here, and that's what we need. We don't need as much as we need capital that creates enterprise, something that's profitable, as opposed to something that's a drain. We don't need a drain. Now, what does that mean? This is the last point in Bedford County. That means county is going to have to try to go local. I've been talking to Denny for 5 or 10 years about being local. Catherine's going to talk to you maybe a little bit about local food. She already has. It's going to be important. We're going to need to be able to band together. We're going to need to be able to create county. What I hope is that
to anybody. Nobody listens to statistics. How bad things really are. And will never be. Captain can explain in a few minutes. Let me tell you about Captain. Grandfather started the first hospital in Jackson, Tennessee. A surgeon in Philadelphia, so that's where she had degrees and, as I say, on at the moment. All this from the Wharton School of Business. Language Institute in Hong Kong. Been in college. Still a down-to-earth person. And when you ask a question, if it seems dumb, it's not too dumb for her. And if you don't understand the answer, ask her again, because she will try to explain it in simpler terms. She can't talk above our heads. She's down on my level also. We've had great 3 days of discussion. She belongs to over 31 boards and advisory councils around the world. She was the first woman to be made managing director of a major Wall Street firm in the history of 156 years of Wall Street. That was Dillon and Reed. She did this at a young age, in her early 30s. She was named by Business Week the up-and-coming star of Wall Street based on her development of the municipal bond markets. Municipal bonds?
Transit bonds.
Yeah. She's closed over $25 billion in deals and has over $300 billion under control, under her advisement at the present time in her portfolio.
No, that's all history, not now.
No,
I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to be responsible.
I'm going to what you told me to get off of, okay? But you have controlled up to that much money. Okay. She took Wall Street because they asked their people to do that and go for government. She's the undersecretary assistant first Bush administration. While she was in, I think it was at Kemp at that time. Didn't see eye to eye on some certain things. She was asked to set up her own firm called Hamilton Group and saw $320 billion worth of mortgages, insurance mortgages, property, FHA, which included the Housing Finance Board, the Home Loan Bank Boards, family man. While managing monies and programming this fall, so they went after her. She was the only person, it took 11 years.
Not the only, but.
Okay, we'll let you explain on that.
Okay.
She defeated the Department of Justice, and very few people do that. Took millions of her own money to do that. She makes Tennessee, which I got to watching her on TV, and I do a lot of internet statistics and comments like that. Who Tennessee? So finally found out she lives in Europe part of the time, and she moved back. And steady report of stability and she does everything in her report. You know, good time. I'm gonna let her do a little presentation, but I think the important part is the answers. Or she faith.
I got an opinion on most everything. It's. Came over. Our normal investment is we Main Street and I have a lot of frameworks to describe, sort of what I think our problems are. I don't think we have financial and economic. I think we have a governance problem. the first thing we have globally is a secret governance system. And if you asked me to get to a blackboard and show you how the global governance works, I couldn't, I could engage in conjecture, but I couldn't I couldn't go into the court of law and draw the organizational chart because it's secret. Now, I've touched it. It's like walking across a battlefield at night where occasionally often you get a picture, and so occasionally a flare would go off and I get a picture. So I'll give you an example of one that's sort of delicious. I was in a partner and the chairman had left and gone to be and I remember there was I had another partner who was the son of the guy who'd been the chairman a while back, and so he sort of knew all the inside baseball. He's the guy you'd go to when you didn't know how did Berkeley get to be the Brady guy. And Jim looked at me and he said, well, Brady didn't choose him. The Rothschilds choose him. I said, we own the firm. What do the Rothschilds have to do with us? And he looked at me and he rolled his eyes like, you should never make a girl a partner because they're so clueless, you just can't even talk to them, and he just walked away. And that's when I said, is this a conspiracy theory? Anyway, so you get these little glimpses. I would say our number one problem is sovereignty. Because all financial assets, all financial systems depend on the law. And if increasing amount of international organizations and banks have sovereign immunity and are free from the law, then you're dividing society up into a group who can not only engage in crime, but get away with crime. And crime that pays is crime that stays. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with criminality that has grown for many decades. It's a slow process. Essentially, we now have that think they have sovereign immunity and above the law. In Tennessee, at the county or state level, is can we create the conditions and can we protect the most important rights we have under the Constitution? So, to me, property rights are, what I hear is the 2030 we've destroyed the property rights. We're very happy. So the question in joy in this country, it's remarkable. We are terribly, on one hand, we're very blessed. On the other hand, we're very spoiled country where tyranny is really in charge. But if you've been there, you know how lucky we are. Anyway, so the two things I would say is, it's great to see the two hats. This that's number one. But the second thing is we have to grapple with how do we create the conditions of those who are fighting for our financial and healthcare. So the way I met Reed was through the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense. And it's a very, very important. I had a client at the beginning of the pandemic who'd sold a big piece of property up in New England. She had in Texas, and she called me and she said, should I? I said, what's the point of having more assets if you don't have an army to protect them? So that's the question for all of us. Can we create the conditions of sovereignty here in Tennessee with our local leadership, with our state leadership, with our communities organizing? Because without the law, no assets have any value. That's what we need. We need law, and we need to be sovereign individuals, and we need sovereign governments who respect the sovereignty of our individuals. I'm looking at the sheriff, I don't mean to pick on you. Supporting your sheriff is one of the most important things you can do in any county in Tennessee. And I'm from a county that has a fantastic sheriff, and it is a real blessing, but it's a hard job. So, and the sheriff, you know, if the sheriff is gonna be effective, he's gotta have local understanding and local support. So with that, I just wanna say thank you for coming. What I most wanna do is I wanna hear what your questions are and what I can talk about from my experience that would be most useful to you. Of course, my lane is money. Anything having to do with money, I find fascinating and interesting. I love money. I think it's a great tool the way it's being used now. I sometimes feel like money's a hammer that's hitting people over the head, but it doesn't have to be that way. Great, we have some good bankers here. I know, I can feel it, and you know, money can be an incredible blessing. So my shtick is family wealth. I think family wealth is the basis of freedom, and family wealth is the basis of creating and nurturing and growing great young people. I was in Washington with the Secretary of HUD, and he was asking me for a solution. And I said, look, Jack, the way you grow a great economy is the way you grow a great civilization, one child at a time. He said, that takes too long. I said, well, that's it. Okay, so let me just ask you and throw it out. What can I do? What can I talk about that would be most useful to you?
Not prime to pump.
I just have to, from Michigan State, I would say MSU. Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
And I both love.
In the last 6 weeks or 2 months, Joe has run through. The first one was on the number of federal judges. Cases in their courts, companies for overseeing the litigation. They then ran an article on members of Congress who were investing in companies that they were engaged in legislation. And this week, in the last week, had an article on federal that they regulated.
Well, and I forget if it's the FDA or CDC, they get 1% of the action on the patents that they develop on vaccines.
So you talked about two civilizations, one us who are bound by law, and another one who is not. And I'd like to know your comments about that.
So I would say the corruption in this extent is completely and utterly out of control. And, you know, I go back to crime that pays is crime that stays. And, you know, you look at the extent of the crime. There's a new article today, which you probably didn't see. The head of the Atlanta Fed bought you know, sort of on the early pandemic, and didn't is generally the population has supported the guys who made the most money. Generals do, and there are a lot of state level now, but if you look at the average American and you look at their financials, where they bank, supporting the criminals. And I'm just going to read the red by the story other than Dr. Michael. No? Okay. So I'm going to tell the red by the story. In the summer of 2000, I was a conference called Energy. They're very spiritual. a friend of mine had asked me to speak on how the money works and all the relationship between and Wall Street, Washington. In the middle of the speech, and I was talking about how Department of Justice during, there were hearings in 1990 on the so-called, it was narcotics Central LA. And the Department of Justice money laundering. So I said to the audience, in money laundering, if we stop laundering $500 to $1 trillion a year of all dirty, and the audience had a little conversation, we'd have a problem because that money would leave the New York Stock Exchange and go to Hong Kong or Zurich. And we would have trouble because, we'd have trouble financing the government deficit, and our taxes might go up, or my government checks might stop. And I said, okay, there's a big red button up here on the lectern, and if you push that button, you can stop all hard narcotics trafficking in your neighborhood, your town, your state, thus offending the people who control $500 billion to $1 trillion a year of all dirty. Somebody would push the button just to go on. So if you're the president of the United States, and you win the election, and the political guy comes in and he says, okay, American people is government contract, what are you going to do? So the president can't push the red button. If 99% of the American people will not push the button, the president can't push the button. There's nothing he can do. It's a highly centralized system. The little secret in all of this is if you could take all had a negative return on investment, and if you engineered it to a positive, the wealth creation was fantastic. And the question for all of this is organizational and political matter. How do we organize? So America, what I discovered that day is that we're pushing the red button. The problem is we can't figure out, we could make money pushing the red button, then we could push the red button. And the question is, how do we do it? But for my entire lifetime, I worked like narcotics trafficking in Philadelphia. We've all been not wanting to deal with the risks of dealing with the growth of organized crime in this country. And it's grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And literally now it's running things. And, but we can't say that we, didn't know, because for many decades, we didn't want to push the red button.
You've made a good living reading the tea leaves. If you look down the trajectory of where we are today, what do you think a year looks like, 2 years, 3, 4 years looks like? And then two, do you think a midterm or a new president would really have any effect? Is there any way to turn this tide? And if so, what does that look like?
So whoever is in office, I always vote and I always care about who I'm voting for, because it always makes an incremental difference. But there are no solutions that can come from Washington. Washington's goal is to centralize political and economic power. That's, I could tell you hundreds of stories, but that's their goal. And that are running things and the banks that are running things, they got this. If we get a Republican House and Senate, our situation will vastly scarier than if we don't. But ultimately, we have to be just says, I'm an entrepreneur, I just care about stuff, I'm gonna make as much money as I can, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, not worrying, I'm gonna worry about the whole thing. One slavery. Now, it can be stopped, it's only gonna be stopped if we realize sovereignty and that's the value of the Constitution, and we work as ourselves. Leadership that's going to support the Constitution and the job that they've done. So time has come where you can't just look at your deal. You've got to be part of supporting a bigger effort at the county and state level. So I'll just give you one of my favorite people in the world, Senator Frank Nicely. And if you come, I've done several interviews with Senator Nicely, and he started with Senator Nicely when they were pushing to get the ability for a farmer to process 20,000 chickens. And I remember one I was saying, why are you boring me with 20,000 for, products? I'm going to have it, let alone healthy families. Senator Nicely in, taking it can make a huge difference bottom up. He was, there's a couple great interviews with Senator Nicely, but in my experience, we as a people, we need and support them. Stop paying attention to what's going on in Washington, because Washington's the Republicans take the House and the Senate, because that could make a big difference. Whew. Any other questions?
What are your thoughts about finance?
Really? I didn't know that.
I don't know, look, I don't watch regular TV, but my mom, I'm originally from Memphis, I moved to Nashville to work for First American, which was one of the great banks.
Yeah.
The surviving bank is Pinnacle, and so still First Tennessee or First Horizon have been Canada, Canadian bank.
For the Canadian truckers. That's, you're talking about real central control there.
my background was corporate cash. And one of the things that we were told, I've been out since 2012 because of health issues, but one of the things that we were told about the banks in Canada is you may have a Pinnacle, a SunTrust, and a third bank, but they all take each other's money. There's no difference between the three of them. There's float with a check, there's very few checks, and so it is.
It's much. I was in Mexico before I came into the state. And that's I believe the health economy, and if you have great local banks and credit unions, then you're into these, then you're going to be and nurture a local banking establishment. That's why I think the whole state bank and running the state finances to encourage and support and stopping the state. CDC, how they implement. They literally about every bank. Central. Well, the more you can build resiliency, and don't worry if it seems overwhelming. I'd love to use the find and anything you can do to get the I think this is thousands and thousands. One of my favorite videos is from Jeffrey's website, but it was a community in Minnesota where the real problems with the kids, discipline, local food, and problems went away. It was amazing.
There's so many restrictions.
It is something the state can do.
I'm not sure. Because I'm hard.
If you can create ways with the universities and colleges and school to work with the business to create
On that, we're shifting our focus back to CTE.
great financing the kids' business. You need a Rutherford County.
And what's happened to the work? Everybody, people, and they all ask, what's your opinion of what's happened?
So I think it's a combination of a lot of encouragement, dependent on government money. You know, I talked about the grade poisoning. I think there's been a lot who, they were gray, totally, and they couldn't handle the stress. They couldn't handle the stress. And they were not healthy. And I think they're tired. The impact and it's causing them to adopt life habits, bad ways of thinking, bad every kids. And they're not eager to work. A lot of hope. You know, they teach it. You know, for God's sakes, I think the kids are being poisoned. And we have to fight.
You take a little bit more, I mean, you discussed, you think every,
I think everybody's being poisoned, but in the digital. There's a wonderful book by an attorney called Irreversible.
I'm familiar with. And I have a mole in our library system and the school system, and
To produce. It's excellent. She's excellent. And her number one piece of advice as to what she should do, she said, don't give your kids a smartphone. Very strong feeling about this, so I'm just going to share them. Everybody sees, right? Spectre is the transnational organized crime, you know, and Ernest Cat, Goldfinger, right? You know who Spectre is. Okay. When you give a child a smartphone 24/7 to your child's soul, their mind, and you're giving them the ability to use the most invisible weaponry, military grade, entice and entrap your children.
Go on that. If you all want the patent that truly exists,
Right.
and will send you.
If you want to know more about this, this is, if you go to World was happening to the grandchildren, and it includes many ways to irreversible damage. But at the bottom, in a lecture, James Giordano lectures to the military on military grade neurology. Technology. And the reason I know a lot about it. For 10 years, I was an investment advisor working with individuals losing all their money to financially that I needed them to understand. And listen, their report you gotta come on the Solera report because my clients are being, you can't deal with it unless you know it's people not behaving rationally more often than not. You just cannot, I say this because it's one of the things I did get seen working in Washington. Number one, country is control. It's a huge industry. They working on how to control, how to manage, how to persuade. There's a governments are
What are your thoughts in regard to tailed money and the influx with immigration laws? It's accelerating. What's your thought?
So there's several things going on with immigration. My understanding from the people I know who live near or on the border is open. There's no border. Good people coming across, but I also think the cartels put their people. When you let those cartels take in, they make money, but everybody, the place, of course, is not safe. Very successful executive in Chicago called me a couple of years ago. And this is the vision for this that take hold. Enthusiastic about Trump as they knew that without the speed of what's happening. There are two sources I hold standard for the COVID injections. And one is Dr. We've tried to get to look at what's really in this stuff. And what we just discovered from what we know is there's wide variability. So it's a saline shot. One guy gets an mRNA technology shot, somebody gets. And what you find is that what's supposed to be for example, the Japanese these are not pharmaceuticals. And they're not if you want the best, pull up a link and you can find all the videos if you want to watch it. But I think the three girls suffered been part of it. And I will tell you, I'm very concerned that when you think they can get away with something. Anyway, so I learned a lot when I was in Washington about the mortgage. And the reality is mortgage fraud has been a profitable line of business for a whole variety. Financed a lot of the black budget to receive fraud. It's a financial fraud. And it's grown into worth 3 times what it would take to pay off all the single country. So So in 2015, the most money in any year so far. The entire federal budget just the financial statements for all the agencies, and he looked it up, and I was right. You know, let's just confirm how much. So I had it up to $12 trillion. He and his students went through the whole thing, and his money dollars. They found another $9 trillion. He published a study. He published 17, and at the time okay. Now, standpoint, $1 trillion of real cash and credit, or was it 4 trillion, or was it 10 trillion? There's no way to know because an undocumentable adjustment doesn't necessarily convert directly to cash. But what I will tell you is fantastic amounts of debt. Fantastic amounts of money were moved out, you know. And the first thing to do is I kick all those back. If your bank, you know, I would get out because I don't trust them as far as I can throw my Department of Justice. Law. And I would expect, I've written a lot about this, you can find it, it's Larry. Neighbors in Hickory Valley who make $24,000 a year on average, pay corporate contractor $100 an hour to do something do for 25. It makes no sense. I used to bang the drum about this, and then this wonderful woman in Florida had a job. A person, she got fired coming into the financial. So one day she calls the food hotline and talking to somebody from India working for JP Morgan Chase, who runs a lot of the food stamp program. And she said, why are we paying somebody in India to do a job that I would love to do, and then I don't need to be on food stamps? So they're paying me not to work. And they're paying somebody in India with a markup to JP Morgan Chase to do a job I could do. And I will tell you, you know, if we were free to arbitrage, you know, sort of re-engineering labor back locally, you know, out of publicly traded.
contract with Manhattan for a number of years to have it done in India.
Now, but I'll tell you, this was the whole idea of commuter. So when that finished, I would print out the foreclosure inventory. Visit to some taking go to a block and it says we have 10 boarded up homes here. Is bad for health and it's bad for the food stamp is outrageous. And the IT and the banking side, not to say feel better. All your Starbucks would be making money.
Several small business people and give them the analysis of what you think the economy is going to do. Couple months.
But we have a system with a fiscal fist. And of course, that creates inflation if you're not. And that's why, and let's say, just to make it simple, they're making $1 million a year profit each, okay? And that's 100 million. What's the multiple on their equity? If my business has a value of my business, if I have $1 million a year profit on the business and profit accounting.
Well, I don't make $1 million a year, so.
So maybe it's 5 to 10. Okay, okay. Now, I haven't looked at the market. It's trading at a multiple 20 times. dollars flowing through 100, not 5 to 10. That's a huge advantage. And what you can watch is a sucking sound of trying to get income. The guys who got the humble. And if you look at the rules on the pension funds and everything, so giant sucking that, ultimately traded like Farm Bureau, and we can sell stock to the community. It's been proven again and again. If I own stock in a business, I'm going to participate in that business. I'm going to support that business. I'm going to give feedback to that business. Consumers will support businesses that they own a share of stock in. But you can put out a pool and you can sell shares locally, and you can start to liquefy enough equity so that you can get, instead of it being 20 to 5 or 10, you can start to rebalance that, okay? You can make it eligible for IRAs and 401ks and start to rebalance that. The most important thing you can do, why does a big corporation trade much better than a small business? Number one, tomorrow, what's going to happen? Take his place, right? If there's a car crash, there's no bench to take their place. To stay on Main Street, we can create a deep bench of talent behind our business. Change the capital. To have a depository levels that supports the local banks. Some of the federal regulations mention new technology. We've got to together. I mean, we didn't come money here. Have a freaking spark. I did work in Washington, but